All right. Hey, I'm Brandon.
I'm Chris.
And this is Fill the Box. This week is the Firewives episode. Excited to have all you guys here. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedules. We really appreciate it. So, first and foremost, let's catch up.
Yeah.
Yep. So, I don't have enough hands for the shit I've been doing, but I went through driver op, passed it. Got strep, passed it. I also went to peer SISM team training, which was really cool. It was a blessing to go through. I really appreciated the lesson from Ed Hatcher. Super cool dude. Class was a little long, but man, it was informative.
Good.
Passed all that, and still taking antibiotics, so I technically haven't passed strep, but we're thriving now. Went and had Chewy's last night with you guys.
Yeah.
That was a blast.
Yeah.
So at work, we've been busy. I got to do all my budget stuff, fixing ladders and, all that. Also, I didn't tell you, I got to drive the Quint. Ooh. Super fun. Got a little lost. Also pulled some cords out of the wall. So just not a great driving day. I don't get to drive that often.
What cords did you pull out of the wall in the Quint?
So we have tough books and a monitor in the Quint, and so it sits in the back seat. Well, I closed the door, passing the door, but I didn't unplug the cord from that power cord to the wall. Pulled it all out of the wall, wrapped the cord up in the rear duals. Just a whole production.
That's cool, man. That's good for you.
Oh, and we were on the way to a CPR, so that was a lot of fun. We had people waving at us like, "Hey, stop! Help! You got something?" And I was like, "Oh my god!" So anyway, so that was a great day. Terrible timing how that happened.
Yeah.
But I blame all that on I'm just blaming everything on strep. Honestly,
Fair enough.
My brain has just been gone. The antibiotics got my brain fuzzy. What about you, man?
Dude, a lot going on. It's been a busy time at work, but good. Work has been really good lately. I'm back at home, back at my home station now. I've been bouncing around for a couple months, but we all got our end of probation testing done for our new positions. We're all passed and signed off, so that's a weight lifted. It's no longer having to worry about. So
how was it going to the ghetto?
Oh, dude, it's fun. I love it. I wish we had. I told Taylor yesterday we were driving through Fort Worth to the air show, and we pulled up at a stoplight, and there's this crackhead just dancing on the side of the street. And my first comment was, "Man, I wish we had more crackheads around here. They're fun." And she was like, "What are you talking about?" So
I really hope you never get crackheads because I live in your first due. But
yeah.
I can see how that could be fun.
But yeah, man, everything's good. It's just been busy, just like everyone else.
So. Like I said, this is the Firewives episode.
Yep.
Ladies, welcome. Congratulations. You made the cut.
These are just the 5 that we convinced.
These are the 5 that we could wrangle up. Yeah.
2 of them didn't really have a choice.
I mean, you for sure didn't have a choice. But thank you for coming. We really do appreciate it. One of the things that we're going to do is let's start with introductions. So we'll start with you, LJ.
I'm Laura. My husband is Nick, and we've been married for almost 7 years in June. Mm-hmm. He's been a firefighter for almost 4 years, and we have a son, Bo, who's a year and a half, and we are pregnant with our second, due in July. I am the preschool director at our church, and I also nanny on the side a couple days a week, and Bo gets to come with me. I used to be a teacher, and I quit when I had our son so I could be home with him.
Cool. Yeah. Sarah?
I'm Sarah. My husband's Jonathan. He has been a firefighter off and on really since he was 18, which I honestly don't feel like doing the math on how long that has been. He started as a volunteer and then went career. We have been married almost 9 years and maybe 2 weeks or so. We have 3 kids. We have Baker is 5, Bishop is 3, and Briggs is 1. They keep us very busy. They are all wild and just basically feral is what we call them.
The hyenas, yeah.
Yeah, hyenas.
Da boys.
Right. And I am a NICU nurse, but I mostly stay home with the boys. Jonathan and I just kind of trade off. So I work right now about once every 2 weeks.
Nice.
But
Bug, let us know.
Yeah, I'm Ashton. I am Brandon's wife. We have been married, it will be 7 years in September. We have 2 girls. Olivia is almost 3 and Sutton is 8 months, or almost 8 months. Yeah. Brandon, you've been a firefighter 6 years?
Oh, yeah, something like that.
I don't know the math on
I
that
don't know either.
But I'm a hairstylist. I just work a couple days a week and then get to be home with the girls the rest of the time.
I'm Taylor, Chris's wife. We have a daughter, Sarah, who's about to start kindergarten, which blows my mind. But we've been married almost 7 years in about 2 weeks, and I am a high school science teacher and a softball coach. So,
Chels.
I'm Chelsea. My husband is Austin. We've been married 5 years. Our anniversary was this Friday, so that was fun.
Happy
And
anniversary.
Yeah,
thank
happy
you.
anniversary.
Thanks. And we have 2 girls, Everly, who's 4, and Ember, who is 2. And then I work at our church in West Fort Worth, and I get to do women's ministry. And Austin's been a fireman. I think he is in his 7th year, 6th or 7th year, but he was also a volunteer fireman with Parker County for a while before that.
Yeah.
He was one of the first dudes that I met when I started volunteering in Alito.
Really? That's fun.
He was one of my first fireman influences.
Yeah. Yep. So, let's start here. Today, we are going to get into some extremely deep conversation. This is the episode everybody's been waiting for, learning about the fire wives and learning how women work, and we're going to break that down and dissect it. We are going to talk about some extremely important individuals who keep the ship upright while we're away, and what's that look like to them. It's going to be you guys' perspective of what we're like, well, what it's like while we're gone, what we can do to better improve that while we're gone. I know that's really like far-fetched and hard to say, but realistically, like, man, is there a way we can set you up for success after we're gone? After we step out that door 7 a.m., what's that look like? How can we help you transition into that role of being the everything, the provider, the leader, the caretaker, all the things?
You stepped out of the door at 7 a.m.
You know what? You right. I sure do be getting to work like right on time. No. Hey, man. I'm black, dog. Yeah.
Still gonna hear that.
But so today's going to be about learning, perspective, growth, understanding, communication. This will not be an expose. Don't dog your husband, but we will expose some stuff and just tell the truth. Right? Like, do not rip him up and down because he's not here to defend himself, but let him know, like, this is for you. This is for, like, hey, this is what you need to do before you leave. This is how it would help me, and this is what would bless me while you're gone. With that, I'm not going to ask you to do anything I wouldn't do. So I'll start by saying, like, I've dealt with unhealthy relationships with pornography. I've lusted after women. I've had alcohol addiction, dependency. I've chased adrenaline dumps with gambling, sports, motorcycles, whatever. I've withheld and withdrew. I'm no saint. I've treated my wife wrong on purpose many times. And so this is just one of the things that I've realized, like, I have unhealthy coping mechanisms from the stresses of the job, from the stresses of everyday life as a man, and she catches the brunt of that. And so I'll lead out by saying, dude, I don't do this shit great. And so I am extremely dependent on my wife. With that, I have made life way harder than it needs to be. So one of the things that today is going to do, the goal is to help 2 people coexist and make sure that they're doing everything to stay upright, right? We're not marriage counselors by any means. We are just an example. We are, we're not even a measuring stick. We are truly hey, this is the way we did it. It didn't work great. Like, this is, hey, you can do it, you cannot. It may work, it may not work, but this is what happened when we did it. So tell the uncomfortable things to the world in hopes that it'll make a relationship better and stronger. Today's conversation is not about you, but it is for you, right? Like, today you are focused on your husband. I know you don't get a lot of time away from home. I know you don't get a lot of time away from them babies, but today is for your husband and how that will help him and how that will help a lot of men around the country. So we're going to do our best to support you in your conversation, support the mission, and that would in turn support your husband. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
See what we got.
Cool.
See if we can make an episode or something.
Yeah, we'll try. You wanna take the first one?
I just want to say this. Brandon, you just shared a lot with us and just kind of laid it all out there. And I just want you to know, like, we're all here because we've partnered with y'all and with our husbands to try and have that open conversation and just be real with everybody and just share our truth and our story and hope that it helps somebody. So thank you for sharing all that.
Yes.
Oh, it's on.
Yeah.
Where are the tissues, baby? So, Taylor, thank you for that.
You want me to take the first one?
Let's let you do the first one.
All right. So the first question that we have for these ladies is, how do you help your husband decompress, and how do you help him get back into home life routines? And I recognize that is something that's different for everybody. And some guys approach it differently, some wives approach it differently, and it just kind of depends on the situation and who you are. So we're just kind of curious if you have some insight into when your husband gets home from work, are there things that you intentionally do to help them decompress? Are there things that he needs you to do to help him decompress, anything like that?
And there's no right or wrong answer, right?
Yeah.
So tell the truth, let it rip, and let's see if we can make something happen.
We'll start with Chelsea. We'll see
Great.
what she has to say.
So for Austin, a way to decompress when he comes home. So he always calls me whenever he's, leaving work. And so we get to kind of have a touch point while he's on his way home. And then that's where I get to figure out, did he sleep the night before? Did he have a rough call? So then that way I know how I need to approach him whenever he does actually get home. So it's like I almost get, 45 minutes to kind of get my brain in the space that it needs to, in order to, I don't know, just to figure out what the right approach is for our day. And then also, like, especially if he did, have a long shift, I usually try to give him some time throughout that day to do something that is for him. And one thing he loves to do is play video games. I personally hate it. I don't understand the purpose of video games. But I do know that when he's playing, it's like it's a mindless activity that just helps him decompress. But also he's playing with friends. And, I think him having some friend time, even if it's not in person, he's still connecting with, someone that can, refresh him. And so I think that's the important thing, is letting him do something that will refresh him. Because I've noticed this, when I've given him that time to refresh, he actually comes back and approaches me, I think, with more intentionality. And, I feel like I have more of his focus because he's had time to kind of clear his mind of everything he's gone through the last, 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's wild because so every now and again, you got to explain to your wife, like, hey, I've been at work for 48 hours. I know it's the best job in the world. I know I get to hang out with friends, but it's still work.
Yeah.
And so I think every now and again you have to balance that. So that's a really cool thing that you understand. Like, hey, it's 48 hours of work. Like, those 2-3 a.m. calls are no joke.
Oh, we could have had the best shift ever and like just had fun for 48 hours. I still get home and it's I'm tired.
Yeah. I'm tuckered out.
Yeah.
Yes, because I mean, you guys aren't getting, quality sleep because you're always on edge thinking about, am I going to get a call or, like what situation am I going to end up in? And that's something he's told me is like, I just don't know what's going to come next. And so it's hard for him to get restful sleep. So I just have to be aware of that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I'll say this has looked different for us in different like phases of our life as well. Because there was a stretch of time you were working 24 hours and only having 2 days off. And then going to that 48-96 has been a game changer for us because now we have that. All right, that first day he's home, I have zero expectations. I know you need to sleep. I know you need to have your me time, veg out on the TV, whatever that looks like. But then I still get 3 good days with you after that. And so that's been a big blessing for us is just the schedule of things and just setting the expectation of, I know that first day is a rest day. Even if we have something to do, like carving out that time he knows he can take a nap or decompress, whatever that looks like.
I know I've mentioned this before on another episode, but a lot of, firemen, we married nurses and teachers, and we talked about this earlier, but with you being a teacher and you work Monday through Friday from 7 to sometimes it's midnight, who knows, but being a coach, but during the week it's not that I'm like, oh yes, Taylor's at work, I don't have to see her. It's I get home and I don't have anybody at home that's like, hey, I need you to do this, I need you to do this. I can go home and I have time to do whatever I need to do at home without feeling like I'm having to provide something for somebody else. And so I feel like a lot of the guys that, like Dusty, for instance, his wife is a nurse, and a lot of the time she lines her schedule up to where she's working the same days as him, so they're not missing days with each other, right? Which is great. But he and I have different ways of handling home life because when he gets home, a lot of the time he's gone home and they're there, and so that's something they have to figure out. That's something that's a little bit different for us. I feel a lot of guys because I have that day to kind of get my head right before she gets home.
Yeah, that first 8 hours while she's at work. Yeah.
Now the weekend's a little different because I get home and Sarah is asking for donuts right off the bat. So,
dude, what's a little bit of sugar, right?
Yeah.
Dude, they love it.
To the point where if I don't show up with breakfast when I get home and Sarah's home, she's asking me why I didn't get breakfast.
Oh yeah, for sure. Hey, Dad,
how dare you?
Let's get in the car, bro. Let's roll.
Yeah.
Ashton Brooke, what you got?
Yeah, I feel like just listening to Chelsea was a good reminder for me. I feel like in this new season with a new baby, this has been the toughest for me of giving you the space that you need because I just feel mentally exhausted by the time you get home. And it's really hard not to be like, help me with these babies. And so I feel like we've just had to really work hard at giving each other, like, you've been letting me start to exercise again and get out for runs, which is really good for me.
Before we just say it like that, she can go exercise anytime.
Let me is not what I. But it's just so good to be reminded of, like, I think there's times where I'm better at giving you your space and times where I'm not, and I'm exhausted and I don't care that you've been up all night because I've been up all night with a baby. So it's just, it's looked different in this season than it has in past seasons. So,
right.
And I agree with that. Like, I think we have struggled with that as well because we get one kid sleeping through the night and then, I'm pregnant again and we start all over again. My oldest kid is 5.5 and my youngest is almost 1.5. So we've just had them all kind of back to back. And we are home a lot of the time. They go to Mother's Day out, but that's it. Yeah. And so we're home a lot and they're a lot. I love them, but they're a lot. They're my husband's kids. And, we joke around all the time that everything they do is always his fault. Like, especially if it's bad, it's his fault. It's because of him.
Always.
Right. But we have struggled with that he comes home and, honestly, I don't think either of us sleep well at night. He hasn't been sleeping well lately. And I think I'm tense all night long, waiting to hear who's going to wake up because one of the three is going to, bound to wake up at least once. And then I never know who it's going to be. Is it going to be because someone's sick, or bad dream, wet the bed, whatever. So I think by the time he comes home, it's breakfast time. Are we trying to rush out the door to get to Mother's Day out?
Yeah.
Are we just, I've had enough. They've driven me crazy. And so I'm kind of the same way. Like we've kind of struggled with giving that time to let him decompress. Whereas I just say, here you go. Like
Help.
yeah. I want I want 5 minutes to myself. Whereas I'm sure he feels the
Probably
exact
feel the
same way. So, and I mean, I think some of it is it's just a phase of life. You know, as the kids get older, they will be in school and all those kinds of things. We will have that time to where he comes home, and either whether I'm home or not, he will have more of a chance to do his own thing. That being said, it's also 4 years away from our youngest going to kindergarten, so we can't just wait on that.
Yeah.
But it is hard to sometimes find that, or just remind yourself, like, yes, he's been gone, but it hasn't been a vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been work.
Yeah.
And some days the work is harder than others, right? Like, so traumatic calls and like shit, even just dealing with people at the station. You're like, oh my God. I have 48 hours with you, man. I need you to buckle in. So seriously, yeah, the 48 hours is never a vacation. It is definitely work. And so one thing that I can say, and I kind of speak for all your husbands, provision is important, right? So like that's his role, that's his job, that's what he is inherently built to do. And so when you talk about provision, it adds an extra level of stress. Greatest job on the face of the earth. I swear to you, firefighting is the best. But it adds that level of like, oh, I have to do this perfect. So that way I don't get a mark or a warning or whatever. So that way I can keep this job and keep providing for my family. So that is definitely understandable. LJ, what you got?
For Nick, he really values going to the gym. So I really try and make sure that he gets to do that as many times a week as he wants to. And he'll spend 2 hours there, and it feeds his soul. It's hard because I don't see it as a priority. I don't work out. But obviously you boys need to work out and stay fit, but it's just a good outlet for him. He goes to this fancy gym, and there's like recovery chairs. And so he'll even sit and have quiet time and just read God's word, and that's really good for him too. But I get the mental load. It's really hard. And it's even, I think, can be hard on Nick more so because he has a job on the side as well. So he only really gets 2 days off with his 48-96 schedule. And so I just try and remember he works 80 hours a week, and his mental load is just, it's high. And thankfully with the job that I do work, I'm gone a couple days a week. So that means I take Bo with me, and that just helps him have the house to himself.
Yeah, give him some space. Yeah. So on decompression, what are your husband's favorite activities? I know you said video games, but like what else? What is your husband like? Oh man, that's gonna really tickle his fancy.
He loves to golf. Loves to get to go golf and shoot when it's nice weather at the range.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like the same kind of things, like just being outside, active, doing things. Like he's not like lately he's kind of been a little bit more of a homebody, but he's really not. I think it's just once again the space of life where he feels guilty going golfing for the whole day, doing these things for the whole day, even though
because it takes a whole day to golf. It's a
I don't understand how though.
It's the entire day.
I don't get it.
Well, so it's a lot easier. It's a lot faster when you're better.
Good.
Yeah.
That's kind of what he says too. It's like if I were better, it would be quicker. But
when you suck and you're off in the trees and the weeds looking for balls, it's not great. What about you?
I feel like Taylor and I joke all the time, and even sometimes Laura, like it depends on what y'all's flavor of the month is.
That is true.
Brandon and Chris oftentimes will just go, you know, head like really deep into things. Yeah, like here we are on a podcast. And so I don't know. It fluctuates. It was cycling for a little bit. You've picked up your woodworking hobby. You know, our garage is full of tools. I don't know. It changes, but I feel like anything that you're definitely not somebody who can just sit. So you have to be pretty active.
Bingo.
Yeah, our husbands definitely have 1,000,001 hobbies, and they take them all very seriously.
Very seriously.
And honestly, just knowing my husband, like, he's an extrovert through and through. Like, anything that he gets to go and do and be around people, that brings such life into him. And, you know, getting to hang out with Brandon and his friends, and even if they just sit in a workshop all day and just shoot the crap, like, that feeds his soul so well. So anything he gets to go do with his friends.
We
Yeah.
joke, although I feel like I just have to share this. The number of times that I have come home to Chris at my house working on a project that Brandon probably hasn't thought through or planned, but Chris is just there like helping him out. And so I showed up, I don't know how many months ago, Brandon bought a new safe that required like 4 men, 3 men, however many men to like try to fit through our house. And he gets them to move everything out of our master bedroom so he can fit it in the closet, and then decides, I don't like it here.
Because there was no room for
Because
anything
there was no
else.
room for anything else. And so I just show up in the middle of this and I'm like, Chris, why do I always come home and you're here working on something
Project.
that Brandon has come up with? It's just funny.
So with that, all of your husbands are part of my harebrained schemes. At some point, they're going to get a call, and it's going to be like, "Oh, hey, dog, real quick, I need your help." What? Why didn't you call me a week ago? Nah, this is now. I need you now. And so, one, thank y'all for just letting them be there. Man, I called Austin last week for an IV. Nick, I call him for something, advice all the time, in the worst times possible too. Jonathan helped me put in garbage disposal the other day. And Chris, you know, he's just here with this, so this is thoroughly impressive. But yeah, thanks for that. Chelsea, what you got? Sorry, I didn't mean to skip over you.
Oh, you're good. Austin loves to be at the lake. So we're about to get into lake season, and any weekend that we have open, he just wants to be on the lake, on the boat, and he loves to surf and wakeboard and kind of relax in that sense. But he also, I guess, you know, he does get a little flavor of the month. Like he gets very entrepreneurial, where he comes up with a lot of creative ideas. Like he did, you know, IV services for a while, and now he's like trying to start kind of like an AI tech company for first responders. And he also got certified to fly drones, so he does drone work. I forgot about and that. So he's even been doing it for his mom's real estate business, and for his department.
We have drone shots of our house that Austin shot.
Oh, I didn't even know.
I know. Sorry, I forgot to tell you. But yeah. So right on par. He's one of the boys. He has 1,000,001 hobbies, which is awesome.
It usually involves something techie.
Yeah, he is very techie.
Are you even really a firefighter if you don't have a side gig, though? This is
No.
100%.
Yo, for real. And it's just wild, right? Like, so, and I tell you, firefighting is the greatest job on the face of the earth. I can only say that so many times, but it also affords you the time to go, like, you know what? Let's see what I really like, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's go see what. I don't want to be an accountant. I don't want to be in an office building. That's stuffy.
Yeah.
But how about, like, you know, deep sea fishermen? Like, I might like
Dude,
that.
we were talking at lunch the other day.
Here we
That
go.
will be
We were talking at lunch the other day about, I was like, man, we were sitting there, we just finished our probation test, and we're eating lunch, and I was like, man, sometimes I sit there and I wonder why I didn't pick a career path that was just easy. And there's not like benchmarks I got to hit every year, and I got to constantly be learning new stuff, and like there's testing, like all, like I got to keep up with myself and make sure I'm in top, like all this stuff. And then we're all like, yeah, that wouldn't work. There's no way.
Could you imagine us in like an office setting in
I can't
cubicles?
actually. I think
Oh
it'd be
my
like a
gosh.
sitcom.
Dude, we'd probably blow a building
Yeah.
up. Like,
It'd be like
what
The
happened?
Office.
Oh, well, we put some stuff in the microwave just to see what would happen. But yeah, so, you know, your husband's favorite things and decompression, man, that is huge. And so we said that to like get into like, so tough calls suck. We all deal with them. And Sarah, you're going to have a little bit more leeway into this because you see some stuff. But like, so what is something, like, what are changes that you see in your husband after difficult calls? Like demeanor, physical, like emotional, does he come home and hug his babies? Like, do you see those things? Do you feel them? Like,
do they talk to you about it? Like, do they bring it up, or do they just keep it out and it comes up later, or what? Like,
I would say for the most part for Jonathan, he brings it up pretty quickly. He, like, we don't really talk on his way home. He'll send me a text, heading out. Sometimes it's within 5 minutes. Sometimes it's an hour later. He's like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm just now on the way home. But pretty much when he get home, we get the boys eating and then they're off playing. And I can always tell when they've had a big call because he will like sit down at the table and he just wants to talk it out. And he goes through everything that happened in it, like from the very beginning, just kind of talks it out. I mean, it's probably not great, but he is pretty decent at just kind of pushing everything back. So
we're all pretty good at that.
Yeah. So
that's why we're here.
That's what we do. Yeah.
Right. That when something does happen, that he just kind of plays it off like it doesn't affect him, it doesn't bother him. So, I mean, like you said, I've seen some things that, I'm sure nothing similar, but I have been in the ER when they brought in, babies that have, basically died from SIDS and we've tried to get them back, or been in the OR when this baby was down in the OB's office and then able to get them back sometimes not. But I know it's not the same. But he just doesn't really talk about, like, once he gets through that initial talk about the whole call and what happened, that's pretty much that's it for him. So I just really try to let him talk it out as much as he can then, because I know that that's pretty much all he's gonna do
right
at that point.
Yeah.
Nick is the same way. He just has to talk about it, and as long as he talks about it, he's really good. It's kind of how he processes and decompresses. But it's, I think, just challenging for them to figure out what the best way to process, especially like based on each call. And they're also different in how they're, like, the level of severity of difficulty, And sometimes I question him, like, are you really good? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. It's really just a job. As long as I talk about it, it's okay.
And you should question him, right? Like, so that's kind of your role, right? Like, so if he is uncomfortable and you can see his shoulders are tight and he's just like tense, be like, hey, what's really good? Like, come on, talk to me, right? Because a lot of the times, like, there are going to be instances he's not going to talk to you, but he's going to need his voice. And then vice versa. There are instances like I'm not going to want to talk to a male. I want to talk to a female so I can either be super vulnerable or I can just be like 110% like, hey, this is what happened and I don't really want to fix it, because males, we try to fix. I just want to talk about it, express my emotions, and get out of there. Right. And so that's your role, right? Like you are going to be that soundboard.
Yeah.
Tay, what you got?
I feel like with Chris, the first 24 hours always looks the same. It's us just kind of getting back into the swing of being back under the same roof again. So typically those conversations, that decompression comes on day 2 of being home. I've noticed, and just in the most random of times, just be like, hey, this happened on shift. Just wanted to share with you. And just, I asked him today, actually, this morning, prepping for this, like, what do I do well? I don't really know. Like, sometimes I feel like he comes to me with things and talks about calls, and I sort of feel guilty of not knowing, like, how to help him process that. And I definitely don't understand what he's feeling or thinking or seeing, because I've never been exposed to anything like that. And so just hearing him say, you're just a really good listener. You just hear me with an open heart. And that was reassuring for me to know that at least I'm not totally screwing it up, like at least he finds comfort in being able to have those conversations.
Well, for me, it's like you talk about how it's usually the second day that comes up. That's my ADD ass brain. Like, it just randomly, we'll be driving somewhere and all of a sudden I'll start thinking about this call we had 3 days ago. And I'll start talking about it with her. I'll be like, oh, hey, yeah, we did this. Did I tell you? And I'll start talking about it. My problem that I've noticed recently that I need to be better at is I'll start talking to her about a call that we've run. And I just start talking about work, right? And I zone out because I get into it. And halfway through, I realize I'm talking to her like she's one of the guys. I'm talking to her about all this stuff we did on this call, and halfway through, I'm like, she don't care about this. She doesn't need to know all the details of what happened. But I just start going and talking about it, and she just sits there and listens. And sometimes she'll ask questions like how do you feel about it or stuff like that. But
I don't think you have to get better at that, because I think that's good for you. Like, there's definitely times, and maybe you can relate as a wife, like, I can tell when you're telling me something that you do need to get off your chest, and then when you're just venting, and like some of the stuff I'm like, I don't know what any of that means, but he obviously needs to talk, so I'm just going to keep listening and just let you fully get out all of your thoughts. Even though
fires, I'm never that worried about it, because I zone out and I start talking about the fire and like every single little thing we did, because I'm super excited about it. But then like some of them I'll start talking about like a trauma that we ran, and I'll get halfway through and I'm like, she probably doesn't need to hear all of this.
But we also don't mind taking that on either.
Yeah.
Like, we want to be that person for you. So,
Chelsea, what you got?
I would say that, I think I mentioned earlier that, during that phone call while he's on his, way home, I kind of get the temperature gauge of, what he went through. And so I try to kind of pick up on cues of maybe things that did bother him, whether it was an actual situation or sometimes it's just, conflict with the people he works with. Yeah. And so, even when he comes home, we've got our girls that instantly want his attention. And so, we don't always get to have that, like right off the bat, like, how are you doing? And so usually what I'll try to do is, if we didn't get that touch point throughout the day, just because of, the busyness of everything else, then at night, I notice he always goes to this one corner of our couch. It's just his spot. And so what I try to do is I'll come and like meet him over there instead of kind of sitting on my other side of the couch. Like I will intentionally come to him and kind of just like get in his space, and then not like intrusive or anything, but like, just kind of ask him a couple of questions. And I noticed like me just approaching him has really helped him just to start opening up and really decompressing and just sharing some of the things that's going on. And from there, I'll figure out, if I should say, words of advice or if it's just listening. Because I think at the end of the day, he just needs to know that I'm on his team. Mm-hmm. So I think that's usually my goal is like, you have someone here who supports you and loves you, even though, you had a rough shift. And
And it's so crazy, like how that the physical motion of going towards him will change. Right, it'll change his mindset. It'll change the actual mood of the room. Right, like I said, I'm a withdrawer. I've done things in my relationship to damage my relationship. I know that. When we're angry at one another, we don't fight. We're not yellers. We don't throw things. Like we literally withdraw. And so that space that we make is how big our argument gets, right? So the other day we got into it over, actually, I don't even remember now.
Yeah, I don't either. I know I called Laura to like, just for encouragement, get my headspace right.
But it was literally, here we go. I left without saying goodbye. Right. And that's not something I do. Right. Like, because we go to a dangerous job. It could be the last day I see her, all that shit. I left without saying goodbye. And it it messed me up. And so she didn't know this, but I was already ready to apologize after leaving. Like, I was like, oh, can't do that again.
Well, and I think I even text you immediately because I don't always wake up when you're getting ready for a shift, but I know that I can hear you. And so I just like wait for that. You always come over by the bed and hug me and, give me a kiss and whatever our little thing is. And so you didn't do that. Mm-hmm. And then I got up and I'm like, he left. I'm like, oh.
It's on.
Yeah.
But not even that it was on. It was just like because the nature of y'all's job, and that's just something we've established in our marriage of like, no matter if we're in conflict or not, like we're going to kiss each other. Like, I don't know. That's just what we've done. And so I immediately texted him. I was like, that hurt me. Like, I know we're in conflict, but that hurt. And so I think just establishing, I don't know.
Just saying that it affected you.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Well, and so like, and like I said, that space, right? Like, so that night we got a king size bed. We can go to different parts of the world on that thing. And it was just like, I didn't touch her. She didn't touch me. And it was just like, the whole thing. But realistically, when I came back home after we apologized and after all that stuff, it was one of those things to where it was like, all right, we closed the space. Like we hugged each other, we embraced each other, and like that gap was closed, and so the argument was closed, and it just changed. It physically changed the way I felt, and so I don't know about y'all's husbands. I'm a touchy feely guy, if you can't tell. But that's what I needed, and it was just one of those things. Like I realized I've been learning so much about myself, but I realized space is one of those things. Like it can make or break me. So
it's funny you talk about space. You being a touchy feely person, because like
my husband is not.
I was getting to it. I am not, and my wife is. And without getting into love languages and all that, her love language is touch, and I don't remember what mine is, but it's not that. And
probably
so
gifts.
I'm not great at fulfilling that for her, and I know that, and it's something that I know I need to be better at, and it's just I don't know why it's so hard. It's just one of those things that, like it's hard. So typically I'm not great at that. Sometimes like we'll be sitting on the couch and she'll just come over and lay on top of me. Like literally just get on top of me and hug me and lay there, and she'll be like, hug me, and just lay there and hug. And I think that's her being like, I just need to feel close to you for a little bit.
Like we're not on separate islands on the opposite ends of this couch.
But then the other night, so I'm already not great at that, right? And then recently, the last few weeks, like mentally I've been going through it. Like we've talked about it. There's a lot going on right now that has kind of brought up a lot of other stuff that I'm having to work through mentally. And so I feel like the last few weeks I've really kind of reclused into my own head, because I'm trying not to burden other people with what I got going on and figure it out, because that's what I do, right? So, but this has been, the last few weeks I feel like have mentally been worse than it's really ever been. So I feel that I've really recruited back into myself. And so like the other night we were at home and we were just like listening to music, and Taylor came over and she was like, hey, come dance with me. And I was sitting on the couch. I was like, I don't want to get up. She was like, come dance with me. I was like, no, I don't want to. So her and Sarah started dancing. And then Sarah comes over to me and she was like, Daddy, come dance with me. And Taylor looked at me. She's like, I'm going to fight you.
I'm about to pick a fight.
I'm going to pick a fight if you get up and dance with her right now. So, of course, I got up and danced with Sarah.
Good husband.
And then Taylor came over, and we just danced in the kitchen for a few minutes. And Sarah came over, and we picked her up and danced with her. And, like, I don't know if I don't think I expressed this to Taylor, but, like, that moment was huge for me, because it was like a mental, like, eye-opening, that regardless of anything else that's going on, like we have us and we have our family, and it was like it was hard for me. Like that was like, oof, that's it. And you know me, like I joke about everything, and Taylor started crying while we were
literally like now. I just had tears streaming down my face.
And of course I knew what was going on, but I was like, why are you crying? And she was like, I don't know. I know.
It's a moment, bro. It's a vibe.
It's like we haven't really talked about it since then, but like that moment was huge for me, because that was like, it doesn't matter what else is going on, like you guys are there for us to provide that. Whatever we need, you guys are always there to provide that. So whether you know that or not, it feels like whatever we need, you guys always happen to be like, here it is. So
I think for me, like, obviously I'm emotional about it, but it's just that realization that, like, all right, we're going to be okay. Like, been really worried about you, but we're going to be okay. So.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to make you cry today, but.
And also, you're definitely not a burden, bro. Always. Just let it. If anybody's a burden in this room, it's for sure me.
You provide a lot of comic relief. It doesn't matter what it is you come up with. It's funny.
Yeah, because my life's funny as shit. Where we at?
I feel like you brought up a good point, though, with like not necessarily getting into the love language conversation, but just talking about what each person needs, because typically you love the way you want to be loved.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And like constantly checking in with our husbands, especially on y'all's mental health. Like, are we doing a good job? Are we loving you well? Like, is this what you need? Because you can say we're doing it right now, but, you know, are we really doing that well in the moment?
Well, and
Just
something that we picked up in class is like, it's an adaptive So mental health and feelings, they are changing by the minute, right? Like, so, and it's not even necessarily like something that happens externally. It could just be hormones, right? We got hormones, y'all got hormones, like feelings and emotions.
I got a lot of hormones right now.
But feelings and emotions adapt and change. And so a check-in not only is needed, but like it's like almost necessary, because the call that he went on 24 hours ago may not have hit him until he got home and saw the kids, right? Like the call he went on 2 months ago may not hit him until you're driving past that spot and you're like, oh shit, that kid's not here anymore, right? So mental health is definitely one of those things to where it's a constant, like, all right, today's the day's pulse. All right, this is yesterday's pulse, but this is not going to be next month's pulse. All right. Yeah. And so one of the things, like, as we're talking, is like one of those things like we can do is like, for sure, like, hey, how are you doing, bud? Like, what's up? What's really up? And it may be nothing, but the follow up, right? The getting in his space and saying, no, hey, for real, like, hey, yo, for real, what's up?
Yeah.
Right. Like, because one of those things is, it's just like y'all talked about, the space almost cures all, right? Like, he can't be upset about not knowing if you're going to be okay if he's in your space. He can feel you're going to be okay, right? And so that's just a huge thing, is like checking in and closing that space.
And y'all not being afraid to speak up and communicate what you need.
Yeah.
Not being scared to say, I need X, Y, Z.
Well, and I think that's a hard thing for us, because we, like we've talked about, we are providers, and we all have, I don't care how much or how little, we all have the mentality of like, I'm going to handle my shit and I'm going to take care of it. And that's kind of the whole point of doing this, right? Is to hopefully help people realize that, like, it's okay to not be able to handle everything and ask for help. And so bringing up that point of us communicating to you what we need, we can't expect you to provide everything for us without telling you, hey, this is what we need, or this is what we're dealing with. And I think that's a hard thing for most of us.
Well, on that topic, can I ask y'all something, just as fellow wives? Like, what does communication with y'all's husbands look like when they're on shift? Because I've noticed I've been really bad, especially lately, about like when he's gone, out of sight, out of mind. Like, there really is that, all right, I'm in full mom mode, full work mode. I know I have to do the next 48 hours on my own. And I really just kind of like engulf myself in that.
And let's call that what that is, right? That's survival mode.
Yeah. And so
right?
I've noticed that I'm not great at like reaching out to him throughout the day and like, how is your day going? And those day-to-day conversations, I'm not great at when he's on shift. What does that look like for y'all?
So I've noticed recently that in the past, I necessarily haven't always been as good at saying, how is it going? You know, because even if he's not busy running calls, he's still going to find something to do. Like, he's going to go clean, I don't know, the attic. He's going to go clean something. He's going to do something. But I have noticed recently, and I think it's just because he's been struggling a little bit, that when I go to work and I come home, a lot of times he's not asking how my shift went. Like, he's doing what I do. I come home, he's been at home with the kids all day long. He may or may not have seen somebody else. So he tells me how his day went. And I've noticed that by the time I'm falling asleep at, 10:30, he hasn't asked a single thing about how was my shift? What did I, did I have a sick baby, a relatively healthy baby? Like, has no idea about what's going on. And I know, like, how that makes me feel. And so it kind of sucks. And so I have taken it to, not necessarily, I mean, I haven't talked to him about it, so he'll find out about this whenever this airs.
There it is.
There it is. But I have taken that to myself to make it a point, and I'm not batting 100%. Like, to intentionally reach out, and it may be right before I go to sleep that I'm like, oh shoot, I haven't asked today, how has your day been? Yeah. But I know that I haven't been good about it. And so now that I think I'm kind of on like the other receiving end of it, I know that it's not as great. Like you kind of want to share that part too. So I'm making it a point, trying to make it a point to ask. But I mean, we don't talk on the phone much. It's usually just, text here and there. But
for us, it's evolved since, when we first got married, newlyweds, didn't have kids, to where we are now. I think when we first got married, I had this expectation that like, yeah, you need to call me. You need to talk to me for like 30 minutes. Like, I really want that connection. And so I've really had to adjust what my expectations were, and also clearly communicate with Austin of like, hey, let's get on the same page of what communication should look like for both of us, so that one, you don't feel like I'm bombarding you while you're doing intense stuff, but then also, I'm not feeling like I'm on a lone island. And so kind of what we've agreed on, especially now that we've had kids, is, we get one FaceTime call a day. It might be 5 minutes, it might be 15 minutes. It just really depends kind of what, is going on, whether they're doing dinner or they're on a call, whatever that looks like. But he is pretty good at intentionally making sure we do one FaceTime call. And then, throughout the day, like, I know he's sitting on the toilet, I'll send, you know what I mean? So I'm sending him reels. So I think that's when we say connected. Yes. I'm like, if humor is so important for our relationship, and it's a great way to stay connected, is if we're just sending funny stuff here and there, because, you can respond when you have a minute. Yeah. And so it's just more so like getting on the same page of like what each other needs, and, making sure like you are having some connection point, because, it'd be kind of sad if, you didn't have any connection point, throughout the day, because you want to know like, hey, I love you, or I miss you. Right. And I love when he sends me, like he sent me one earlier today of like, I miss you. And I was like, oh, thanks. Like, that's just the little something I needed to feel reassured.
Yeah, we text a lot throughout the day. But he just also, like, it's a mutual thing. But I used to really love phone calls, and it drives him nuts, me calling him. And so he's kind of, what's the word? A mutual understanding of, we'll FaceTime now that we have Bo, and he wants to see Dada on the phone and give him Nuck. It's just so sweet. And so he FaceTimes us when he can, and that's just how we keep connected. But there's not a ton of expectations around it, because y'all could get a call at any moment and be busy, so I try not to take it personally when he's not responding or he's busy or whatever.
I think that's key, is choosing not to get offended over little things, because I think it's easy for us to kind of, take the hit, or, just like kind of feel like we're alone, or like, does he really love me? Because like
entitlement.
Do it.
It's like an entitlement, like, how dare you not respond to me? Like, I'm here with these kids. Yes. And the reality is, like, they're doing a job, Like,
correct. And so, I think it's just like not letting the little things bother us, because I think that also just kind of impacts our own mental health. For sure. And so I think when we approach it from he's not trying to hurt me, or he's not trying to neglect me, he's literally just trying to fulfill his duty as, a fireman and all that. And like, yes, I'm doing my part, and, I'm a mom and everything, but at the same time, it's like, it's just not letting the little things get the best of us.
We're on the same team.
We're on the same team.
I love that.
Something else that we were going to ask is, if you notice that your husband is struggling with something or dealing with something, is there someone specific that you would reach out to for him, or to help you handle it? And on the other side of that, is there somebody that your husband goes to deal with that? Like, obviously for us, like, we talk to each other. Like, I go to Dusty a lot, I go to Brandon a lot. But is there somebody you know of that your husband goes to, and is there somebody that you would go to if there was something that came up with your husband that you wanted to talk about?
I feel like that's huge, just in general, just like isolation, whether that be as mothers or just like, anybody that's isolated without community and a place to talk to. I feel like I saw something on Instagram the other day. It was talking about like statistically, like things that are hurting people is not like suicide and drugs and all these. It's like, it starts with the isolation, right? Like that's where it all comes from. And so for us, like always being plugged into, haven't rejoined a church yet, but just have had like great friendships like Nick and Laura and Chris, and just people that I know who are also for us and for our marriage, which I think that's the big thing, is like for our marriage. So it's not Brandon going to his bros and they're like bashing me or me bashing my husband. Of like, just the other day when we were in that conflict, I immediately called Laura and was like, this is what happened. Like, I want to think the best about my husband, but right now I'm ticked. Like, can you like hit me with some truth from God's word, honestly. And then I always know that like either Nick or, I mean, really any of y'all's husbands are a good place to point Brandon back to. But I feel like for us, like this podcast started out of a place of, we were just in a really bad spot coming off of my last pregnancy with Sutton. I think my hormones were probably raging more than I ever realized. And we just created this wall. Like, you were going through your dad's diagnosis. And so that was really hard mentally. You had also gone on another really hard call. And I think me just, I don't know, we weren't in a good spot where we were talking. We weren't having those check-in conversations. And it wasn't until I think Sutton was just a couple weeks old and we went on our first date and you broke down in the car. And I knew we were at a bad spot, and you had all the signs that something was wrong, but every time I would ask, you just kind of played it off. And so I've praised Jesus that for whatever reason that night you felt comfortable enough to just finally let it all out. And I'm grateful because I'm super encouraged that it's gotten us here and that you're using that to reach out to other men. But
the night, it's on the podcast earlier in the podcast, you gotta go find it. But that night was, I was down. I was down bad. I was literally at the end of my rope. I had no more bandwidth for children. I had no more bandwidth for relationships. I had no more bandwidth for work. I was just exhausted all the way around. And it's a really weird place to be, especially when you're talking about like being present, but not. Like, you're on autopilot. You're like, yeah, I don't give two shits if this gets done. And you're still doing the stuff, but craftsmanship, work, skills, just all of it. Like, whatever. And you just have like zero, almost hope. Yeah. So that was a crazy spot to be in. Talked about divorce that night, and it was just like, I can do this shit alone if I'm gonna be this depressed, you know? So anyway, but that was a crazy night. And so with that, we talked about how to fix that. And so she reached out to, was it Nick? Nick, Fred, and actually Nick, Fred, Raul, Chris, and just a whole bunch of people reached out, man. And it was one of those things, like, I was doing a lot of things on my own, but then she was like, hey, here are all these people in your corner. And we talked about it a little bit. I've talked about it with everybody, and it's been a game changer. So yes, reaching out and communication, right? Like, so I know we talked about like the physical space, but like the emotional space of communication. Like, how do you bridge that gap with your husband? How do you bridge that gap with your husband's friends to make it known, like, oh, hey, look, real quick, they're struggling. Like, oh, hey, real quick, listen, he won't tell you this, but this needs to be said. Because there's a lot of like isolation things, that uncomfortable conversations, like, oh man, I don't know if I can say that. I don't know if I should say that. But that could literally be the difference between life and death, right? Like, there's so many things that we should have said, and I would hate to be in a moment where, like, man, I wish I would have said something. Yeah. I wish I would have let him know, or I wish I would have told somebody. There's just so many moments that we can prevent, even in our own marriage. There's, like I said, I walked out the other day. I wish I would have told her, I'm not upset, but if you're going to be upset, I'm going to be upset too. I never voiced it. it was an expectation that I had that she didn't meet, and that's not her fault. But it's these things that we keep from saying because they're uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's just...
Well, like, I know, like, Ashton's come to me, like, a couple of times to, like, ask me about stuff. But more often than that, like, I know, like, the wives, like, her and Taylor talk.
Yes.
And there's been a couple of times that whether it was, like, a direct thing that Ashton was like, hey, Chris should ask him about this. Or if Taylor just threw the conversation, she would come to me and be like, hey, have you talked to Brandon lately? Like, it sounds like they're like maybe he needs somebody to talk to type of thing. So I know there's been some of that.
Well, and it's crazy that you say that because, like, in men's mental health, like, your wife's relationships with her friends will ultimately benefit you. They say dudes, there's a meme out there and it's like, guys are like, nah, I don't want to be friends with that guy. But realistically, if your wife is friends with somebody, you're friends with that guy.
Yeah.
And it should be, right? Because that's how communication lines stay clear, they don't get crossed, and they actually work. They're effective. So that's cool.
And I think, isolation breeds a lot of insecurities. And I think, praise God that our church has, required us to be in community for the last 7 years. And it is like, you can be fully loved and fully known when you have people around you that can point you back to truth, that can bring you down, that can just be a listening ear. And when Nick is struggling with things, there's discretion. I'm not going to go share, specific details if he's not in a place to share yet, but to be like, hey, Nick needs a guys' day. Can y'all put something together on the calendar? He's not probably going to reach out, but he needs some time with the boys. And just being in tune with like where y'all are at mentally to love y'all the best. And it's not easy because y'all don't always give us a playbook. But
well, and I think what's the other part of this that's funny is that, like if you work with guys that you don't know that well, we're not that close. It doesn't really work that way. But like with Brandon and I, or like with Dusty and I, we've been close enough for long enough now that, like, we go to work or we go hang out and there'll be something going on that we'll complain about our wife, like she did this and blah 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 blah. And we're at a point now in our relationship, Brandon and I, that like, both ways, instead of being like, oh yeah, that sucks, like yeah screw her, now we're like, hey man, what was your part of this? Like, what did you do to contribute to this problem, and what could you do to fix it instead of just complaining about it? And every time we're like, man, you're right, I appreciate you saying that. Maybe I could fix that.
And it's one of those things where, like, I know Taylor is a saint. Right, she puts up with you, me, and all our harebrained schemes. So I know she didn't really have a part in it. I know it was you. So how did you really spur that on?
Nah, you know me better than that, Brandon. We've been in community too long for that.
Very true.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, man. Hang on. So I want to go back real quick. We talked about who do you reach out to. Is there a way you could reach out to your husband and kind of coerce him into reaching out to somebody gently, right? Like, my wife, I don't know if y'all know this, she is not the most gentle person. Very blunt. Hey, fix yourself. I was like, all right, cool. That lets me know. But is there a way you could be like, hey, you should probably go talk to somebody? Is that something y'all have worked on or practiced?
I mean, that's what community is for. I'll ask him, like, well, have you talked to so-and-so? Have you called?
But Brandon? I mean, from your perspective, right? Like, from you, from Laura to Nick, right? Like, without saying, like, hey, you need to go talk to somebody. Just say, hey, what's the temperature in your head like right now, right? Like something really low key and off the wall, but something that's like, hey, you gotta figure something out real quick. Because what sucks is we're all here, but phone calls are a little far away. Like, what's in that moment where you can go, oh yeah, that was not like you, that was out of character. How can you fix that?
So I usually just pray.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like for us, it's one of two things. It's either all right, I'm just going to face you. Like, tell me what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's have that conversation.
Yeah.
Or if it's nothing, like, no, I got it. It's all good, which is what I do sometimes get.
Mm-hmm.
I know that meeting him with that, like, abrupt, no, like, you need to talk to somebody isn't going to be beneficial. That's when I would go to, like, hey, Brandon, y'all schedule a date. Like, and y'all just being together, knowing my husband's personality, he's going to talk about it. Like, just kind of helping him get out of his own way to have the opportunity to meet up with his community, to be able to have those conversations.
It's like last night at dinner. We went to dinner and I had no anticipation of venting to you at dinner, that I just started talking about it, and I just, for like 30 minutes I just talked, and then I was like, sorry, I wasn't planning on doing that with everybody here, but apparently
and I said you should have done it on camera, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I really want to commend Austin for is that I feel like he actually has an initiative to go and talk to people. He has his people that is in his corner. Like, his dad is a huge person that really helps him through things, because he's a police chief, so he's very well involved in what's going on with first responders. And his dad is very intentional with asking, like, hey, like, how was your shift, or just like asking those different questions. But kind of like y'all have said, you guys have your guys that you feel like you're comfortable talking with, and he has that too, with some of the guys that are on his shift. And so I want to commend Austin just for being the guy that is, like, I think he's getting in people's corners, like asking, like, how are you doing, and making sure, like, they're checked up on.
So you don't know this about your husband, but every time you send him to go get food or to the grocery store, or he's in the car, he's a car phone guy.
He calls everyone when he's in the car, when he's running errands. He's calling everyone.
And it's like, it's weird, like, like, for a fact, like, oh yeah, I'm getting a phone call from Austin. Oh, hey man, where are you going? Like, he's going somewhere 100%. To do something. And like, he uses that time to check in. Like, he's like very good at it. So yeah, you commended him for that, but you don't know how well he actually does that, which is super cool.
He does do that a lot, because a lot of times it's on Bluetooth and I'm in the truck and I'm like, hey, I'm here too.
Yeah.
But he doesn't care. He's just like, whatever.
He's like, oh, hey, how are you?
Oh yeah, y'all are birthday buddies. I almost forgot.
We are birthday buddies.
Oh, birthday buddies.
Yeah, August 1st. Getting uncomfortable there, preggers. So we're about to wrap this up. We're getting close to the end. Let's start here. Each one of you has a great husband. How can he help you? That's it. Like, that's the question. How can he help you? What is the best thing, like, when you get home today, or when he gets back from shift? Because I know Nick's at work right now. Like, what is the way he can help you? Like, what is something that you would love for him to be like, this is a physical, like, checklist item? So as a man, I've realized I need a list. So that's what we got into a fight about the other day, was me not picking up after myself, laundry, cleaning up, just household things. And I told her, I was like, hey, I love you, but could you give me a chore list? I'm not good at, like, seeing socks and underwear on the floor. Like, I will scoot right past those. Doesn't faze me one bit. So could you give me a chore list? And with that, all of your husbands have something in a similarity with me. So what could you do, like a physical, like, done, off the list? What could you do to help them? Like, what is one thing they could do to help you?
I think this is so funny, but something we have established is he takes the trash out before he goes on shift, because it is my nemesis. I hate taking the trash out and putting it in the dumpster. While he's on shift, I mean, I will stuff it full before I have to take it out. And I don't know why, I just hate it. But also just checking in mentally, what do I need, is the game changer for me. I don't necessarily have, like I said, Nick works like 80 plus hours a week, so I try not to put a lot on him. But just checking in for me mentally, asking how I'm doing, what he can help with in the moment, is all I really need. Yeah. Just to have eyes to see,
I can't promise you this will give him eyes, but it'll definitely open up a conversation.
Yeah.
What you got?
I think kind of along the same lines of you is just sometimes just helping out around the house. We had a conversation and I've told him that it apparently was not understood, that I said that, it almost on the days that I work, I get home at 8:00. I usually have to come home and help put the kids to bed. I haven't had dinner. I've been on my feet all day. I'm tired. And then it feels like when I get home, that's when he's doing all the chores because he doesn't do them throughout the day. And so sometimes, and then it's probably just me, it feels like he's saving them all so I can see that, yes, he is helping. He is doing laundry. But who starts the washer at 8:00 at night? I'm not staying up to fold them. I'm not staying up. I'm going to be like, all right, I'm going to bed. So it feels like he saves them all to do them all at night so I can see that he can do it. So I made a comment like, hey, you can save that for tomorrow because I need to stay busy the days after I work because I'm exhausted. I don't want to just sit around. He took that very literal. And when I tell you, didn't wipe a thing off the counter, do any dishes from the day, I would wake up and have to clean the kitchen before I could make breakfast. Sat back down, had another conversation, was like, this is not what I meant. What I meant was don't feel obligated to do laundry at 8-9 o'clock at night because then you have to stay up to fold it, put it away, whatever. Unless you need it, don't worry about it. Like, I can do that.
You could just leave it in like 5 baskets like we do.
Wait, you're saying you wash, fold, put it away all at the same time?
I actually do.
I'm really impressed with your impressed
right now.
Congratulations.
We live out of our laundry basket.
Okay, I don't even live out of a laundry basket. I live out of the dryer.
That a girl.
That's where I'm at.
Hey, I'm just
When
glad
I
I'm
was
not alone
teaching,
here.
same way.
Oh, especially like now, like it's like Taylor's in busy like softball season. Like I'm telling you, she goes to work. She's at work at 7 and gets home at midnight sometimes. Like she will take the clothes that needed to be washed, just put them in the dryer overnight and get them out the next day. Get home and like wash the clothes for the next like 3 days. Take them out of the dryer and then live out of those. Like we're at that. It's that busy time of year, man. It's like I could definitely do more to help at home, but she's gone all day, every day.
But what it sounds like you got a system.
It does.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's working.
It's not a good one, but we got a system.
Yeah.
You're super mom doing all that. I promise you. That's a lot.
So sorry. What can he do to help?
Basically, I mean,
The
I would
chores.
say chores. Just, and it's not even that everything. Like there are certain things I don't mind doing, but I have learned that clutter stresses me out. I won't say it gives me anxiety because I don't think it's that bad, but it stresses me out. Like you, he doesn't even notice it. He doesn't see it. The counters can be covered. He'll move stuff aside to cut the fruit up for the boys, whereas for me, it stresses me out.
Yeah.
So just, and it's hard for you to see things that don't bother you, but just trying to intentionally seek those things out and put them away.
Yeah.
Because it used to be that I would clean off. We have a little bar. I would clean off and I would put his pile of stuff in one section and it would just get spread out.
Yep.
And then I would move it back up and it would just get spread back out. And I finally gave up. Like, I'm wasting my own time. Like, this is just making me angry.
That's awesome.
So.
What you got, bud?
I mean, yeah, I could probably piggyback off of that. I laughed at the chore chart. That is what got us in conflict. You said, "Could you make me a chore chart?" And I was trying to explain, like, I feel like you are super helpful around the house. You do a lot. It's your clutter that frustrates me. So I'm like, how do I make a chore chart for your stuff? I don't know. No, I think circling around. We just had this conversation this morning of like, I know you and Chris want to go golf on Friday. So like coming away from, you've been on class the last 2 or 3 weeks doing 2 different classes.
3.
I think for me, like, I always want you to have those opportunities. I honestly love that y'all get to go do that stuff. It is hard, like when you spend so much time at home with just the kids to be like, oh, and I don't ever want you to feel guilty about like, oh, I'm going to go golf, but just like, making family a priority of just before you schedule those things, check in like, have we had our date night? Have we had just dinner, just the four? Yeah, I mean, we have dinner around our table all the time, but like, let's just be intentional about a family day or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
That always really blesses me. Like the other day, we were spontaneous and took a picnic to the park.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't even intentional. That filled my cup so much to just like have just us and it just be a slow night, you know? So those little things, I feel like just they help. They're good.
For sure. And that's one thing I can definitely do better, because so for today I did my due diligence and I got the babysitter for us, and it was one thing that, once again, I'm not great at communicating. That communication didn't go well. But we figured it out and we got a babysitter, and that's one thing I know I can do for sure is like, hey, get a babysitter for date night, right? Yeah. Versus, you know, coming to the podcast. And so but I'm just saying that's something I'm really gonna try to work on and put that, you know, in front, because I do make time for the boys and going golfing. I need guy time. I've realized things about myself, like, oh, I need to be working with my hands. So the pickup truck, Jolene, like, I know that I need to be out tinkering with tools and trucks, and I've realized that about myself. It brings me peace to be moving with my hands. So I know I need to do that to bring you peace, is like date night, intentional one-on-one time, and that's something I'm going to work on. What you got, Tay?
For me, I feel like I carry a lot of the mental load of our lives. From my career, I make 1,000 decisions a day for everyone around me. Yeah. And then just at home too, and making sure Sarah's taken care of. And we both have such busy schedules that it really, like, our Google Calendar, if y'all saw it, would be chaos to everyone else. But like, just trying to manage all of those moving parts, it's a real blessing whenever Chris can just like take something off of my plate without me having to delegate it to him or ask him to do it, because then I'm still carrying that mental load of like, all right, well, did you do it, and did it happen, and like the follow-up, like to just know that he's got me and he can make that decision and take it off of my plate is really helpful.
Yeah, the initiative. That and so, man, taking initiative in your marriage is something, when you're taxed, it's really hard to do. And so and that's where we kind of got when we had Sutton, is like, I didn't want to take on any more responsibility, and damn sure not taking the initiative, right? I need somebody to lay my clothes out for me just so I can go to work, right? Like, and I wear a uniform to work. It's the same one. So it was just like, initiative was way down at the bottom of the list. So I definitely understand why you need that. And so, did you hear that?
Yeah.
Did you hear it?
Yeah.
Did you hear it? Got it.
I hear it more often than you know. I'm just not very good at it.
Yeah. So and then, dude, hearing it in application, applying these things, I you can say it into this microphone. That is going to be solely on your husband to do. Even me, right? Like I said it. I'm gonna try, but there's no guarantee, because one, I'm still a guy. Brad Paisley put that in the thing. But it is just going to be one of those things to where, like, execution on top of all the things that we think we have to do and the things we actually have to do. So, dude, it's going to be like hell. But I will stay on top of this one. Actually, I'll stay on top of all those to make sure they get done. Chills, what you got?
I feel like I could piggyback on what, each of these ladies said of, helping with chores and taking initiative. But I think the one that is most important for me is that time for connection, especially before he leaves on shift, because like, I think quality time is one of my love languages. And so I think when he's intentional about that, that really does help, when he's like kind of picking me over, like, sometimes playing a video game, especially that night before, and like making sure, like, before he leaves on shift, like, we're in unity with each other. Interpret that however you want. But, I just think it's really important, though, for us to make sure that we're being intentional with that time before he goes on shift.
For sure. Yes. And like, so, and I didn't realize this, but so for me, that intentional time, that unity time, like before, it sets the tone for my next day. It legitimately, like, so, like I said, so day 2, I got into an accident with the I didn't get into an accident. really escalated that. I tore some stuff up on the Quint, but I didn't stress out as much as I would have if I didn't have that time. Right? Like, there's a lot of things that I go into work, like, man, some days when I get to work, I'm spooled up. Like, I worry about everything. I'm like, is the dryer gonna dry today? Like, are the tools gonna be tooling today like they're supposed to? Like, just off the wall things that I should not worry about. I should get to work and worry like, hey, am I going to be successful and skilled at my job today?
Yeah.
Am I going to be a great paramedic? Am I going to be a great fireman?
Yeah.
When I connect with my wife the night before, I go to work and I'm like, that's what I'm worried about today. Am I a great fireman today? Let me go be a great fireman upstairs in the gym today.
Yeah.
Let me go be a great fireman in a book today and learn something. Some days, without that, I'm like, who can I piss off today?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Chiefs. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
It's all on you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ashton.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with Chelsea, though. I feel like that intentional time of unity is so important before y'all leave it's 48, it's just 48 hours, but it's 48 hours and it makes, I mean, it sets the tone for me at home too. Like not just.
Yeah.
So kind of based on this conversation,
Sex.
In case no one got that.
Yeah. Not that conversation, the rest of the conversation. Obviously, we can understand that those things you guys just mentioned, when we do those things, you guys appreciate it, and we know that. Are there things, we talked before we started this about what is your husband good at? And you guys all gave answers about what your husband was good at. I'm curious, these may be the same things, but are there things that your husband does regularly that you really appreciate? Slash, what are they good at? So,
well, and so those are two different questions, right?
Well,
so
yeah.
Earlier when I asked what are they good at, we talked about like techie, electrical. We talked about managing things.
She might like the fixed light switches. I don't know.
But no, like, so what are they good at? And then, what'd you say?
What do you appreciate? Like, like on a regular basis, the things that we do, or is there something that your husband does regularly that you really appreciate that he does?
Because those are two different questions,
Yeah.
like for sure. Because Chelsea already said she could care less about Alexa and Google Home and
Fair enough.
techie stuff. So, yeah, what does your husband do that you just like? Oh, that's it. That's prime Austin Aaron.
Prime Austin Aaron. You know what? One thing I just love about him is the fact that he's so positive and he's really just a safe place for me and my girls.
Right.
So I think that's the thing I appreciate the most.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it's just how patient you are, and like I'm very high strung. My high school softball kids like to say that I'm a little OCD, and getting worse by the day. But I feel like I'm safe to be me and all of my flaws and all of that because of who he is, and that I get to be his partner. Like, he is patient, he is kind. Like, the dad he is to Sarah is just incredible to me. He is so good with her in ways that I am not. And so honestly, just him allowing me to be myself is the biggest like blessing in our marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think just your sense of humor and the way that you're positive and just goofy all the time just makes life really fun. And it's the same thing. It's just like I always feel safe with you, and you just are so good with our girls about just being fun, goofy, and even in heavy things like this, like you make it easy. Like, you make things easy. And so I know, like, it's easy to be like, oh, this is really, like, these are all the things that make marriage hard or whatever. This is, we shared our conflict, but truthfully, doing life with you is just easy. It's just
Sweet.
Yeah.
I would say just being there for me. I mean, the times that we've had hard things, bad things happen. I mean, he is always my like safe spot, the shoulder that I need. If I don't want to go too far into it because it's kind of a long story, but anytime, needed like medical help, he literally jumped into EMT, like got to the hospital. He's putting gloves on. Like that's just him. I know he's got my back no matter what is happening. And he's the fun dad. Like he really is. Yes. He's the fun dad. He's the one playing baseball inside the house with the boys. As much as we will regret that, one day, but, he's the roughhouser, whereas I can't stand that. That's not my way of playing, and I will get off the floor, but they get it from him, and that's what they need.
Yeah.
I think Nick is the hardest working man I know, and I'm just really thankful for that aspect. He just keeps us afloat. He just does everything for us. And he's also funny. Like everything he makes a joke out of, and it makes just life fun. He's a great dad. He's very patient with Bo. And it's been sweet to watch him. He hasn't had a ton of kid experience. It's just been sweet to watch him grow in that area as well and wanting to be such a great dad.
To be fair to Nick, you are like a kid guru, right? So you babysit babies, you work with babies, you teach, you do all the things. So you are the exception to the rule too.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I can't speak for all your husbands, but like I said earlier, you guys are really good at least in my experience and what I've seen and what I've experienced, is you guys are really good at, whether you do it on purpose or not, of being there for whatever we need. Just this is mostly like job related, right? So like what we deal with at work and come home and talk to you guys. Somehow you guys are really good at just being whatever we need, whether we need to listen or whether we're asking you questions. Like I know. Like when I had to learn the hard way when Taylor started coaching that I don't know anything about what she does. And so I know about sports. I know about guys' sports. I don't know anything about girls' sports, especially high school girls' sports. So she would come home, talk to me about whatever she had going on at work, and I would offer suggestions of how to handle those things, and was immediately met with, that doesn't work with 17-year-old girls. And so it took me forever to realize maybe I just need to listen. And as we've worked through that, she's been doing it long enough now. I kind of know the place that I don't know how you need to deal with that. And I know there's some things she comes to me that I'm like, hey, have you thought about it like this? Or have you done this? And so I know there's the meme that goes around sometimes of the woman that is talking about how she vented to her husband, and instead of just chiming in on the bitching, he provided actual advice, and she didn't want that, which I think is pretty funny. But I think we've gotten better at, like, sometimes I do give her advice and she's like, well, I know I probably need to do that, but I didn't want to hear that. Or I was looking for you to tell me that I could do something else. But yeah.
But it's all about just knowing you're not alone, right? Like, we're not alone as wives. You're not alone as husbands. Like, we've got this community that we have to rely on to survive it and to thrive in it. And so I'm just really grateful for that community in all aspects.
Yeah. It's so important. This week I went to a funeral for a guy that committed suicide, and he was someone who was heavily involved in a church. And you would think he had community, but he struggled silently, and it's because he wouldn't let anyone in. And so I think that's so important for, us as, people within this service where it's really traumatic and, there's difficult things, is making sure we're not letting those things stay not being silent about it, but making sure we're actually talking to people, not just us, but our husbands as well, and encouraging that.
Yeah. And I'll say, like, my husband and I are very different in the fact that he's extremely extroverted. He could talk to a brick wall all day. Yes. I'm very introverted. I'd be happy never leaving my house whatsoever. And so something he really helped me with was coming back from college. I felt really lonely back in my hometown because I didn't have those connections. And he really encouraged me to get out of my comfort zone and, like, brought me places I had to have conversations with people. And, we got connected at church. And so anybody who's struggling to find your community from a fellow introvert who really struggled with that initially, like, I just encourage you, it just starts with a conversation. Like, just be willing to be vulnerable with one person.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad about making her go to events that she doesn't want to go to, because almost the first thing she asks me every time, I'm like, hey, we're going to go to this. She's like, who's going to be there that I know? And if like Ashton's going to be there or Bronwyn's going to be there or somebody she knows is going to be there, she's like, okay, well, I'll go. Because I can be comfortable with them and I can sit with them and talk to them and I don't have to talk to anybody else. But if it's like, I don't know if you're going to know anybody there, but you're going, she's like, she does not want to do it.
That's my nightmare too. I'm right there with you.
So one thing I've realized I do, like let's say for some reason Ashton was gone to Texas. Dude, I will go talk to everyone and she'll still be at the front door.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my bad.
Yep. Oh, Taylor, we will find like our banquet, our department banquet. Uh-huh. She knows a lot of people there, but she will go or we will find our table and sit, and she will not leave that table unless somebody's like, come here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So people come to us and talk to us.
Introvert. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I feel you.
Lastly, before we go in the outro, what's the best piece of advice you can give to a newlywed? More specifically, a set of newlyweds who about to join the fire service, because you're a part of the fire service, right? Well, you're married to us, so you're a part of it. So what's the best piece of advice you can give to a newlywed?
Community.
Yeah.
You need your people. And I feel like I've been really grateful. Like we have gone to church with the Wilmers and with the Johnsons, but like just really fortunate that, Sarah and the Moores are our neighbors. We got so lucky to have y'all just right down the street.
Tight.
And then we've known the Aarons since I don't even know how you guys met, or
Austin shot me with a firework, but we're going to save that for later.
Save that for his
episode. Another day.
Yeah, his episode.
But it's just, even just having women who understand and, our spouses are in similar places, but you got to have community no matter what that looks like, just to have an outlet so that you're not isolated, back to the mental health thing, for both of you in your marriage.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's important to have other friends that are firefighter wives that know what that stress is like, that deal with the same loneliness. Like, it sounds like all of your husbands work 4896, which I'm actually apparently jealous of. I didn't know what I was missing out on.
Oh yeah, it's the tits. Yeah.
Maybe one day, maybe not, who knows. But just having those, Friday and Saturday days, nights, whatever, where you're alone with your kids and all your friends are meeting their husbands, going out to do this or doing that, whatever, whereas, your husband's at work, and not only is he at work, but he's at a potentially dangerous job that I know whenever Jonathan first started doing it, like I used to get so stressed out, like whenever I didn't hear from him for so many hours, like, okay, does that mean something happened? And over the years, it's been a lot easier to kind of calm down. There have been a couple calls lately that have kind of stressed me out. I don't know if can I mention them?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So like the Sandman Hotel, like that one, I saw it on, I think my sister actually texted me and asked if he was working. And then the first thing that you see when you log into Facebook is mass casualty explosion. Yeah. And that is just, that's hard to be the wife. And I actually saw him, people are posting videos of the firefighters showing up. And I literally saw him putting his pack on and going in. And I was like, well, there goes any question I had on whether he's there. And just the stress of waiting to see why did it explode? Is it an attack? Is it, gonna collapse? Is it gonna explode again? Like all those kinds of things. But having those friends that understand that stress is huge. Yeah. And it's a big help to like be able to talk through or even just go outside and be like, oh, okay, you're alone too. Let's hang out and, be alone together with our kids while they, run wild. So that, and then just communicate with your spouse. Let them know, like, hey, it stresses me out when you don't text me back because I'm concerned about you. It takes time to get to that point where you're just like, he's fine.
Yeah.
But just communicate.
I'd say befriend people that are on your husband's same shift so that you can hang out with them while they're at the station, so that you can fill your mind with things that are not missing your family.
Yeah.
And to remember, yes, them being away is really hard and it's long, but we have the luxury of having them home a lot more than most people do, and that's a gift.
Yeah.
Such a gift.
Yeah, those 9-to-5 accountant engineer dudes, man, they are missing out on a lot.
I would say one thing that's important is to make sure you are staying mentally, emotionally, and spiritually strong. Because if you are not taking the time to develop in those areas, you will, I think that's usually when you're kind of in a mental battlefield with yourself. You know, that's when anxiety really comes in. That's when you let fear rule your, you know, thoughts and your emotions. So I feel like
And insecurities.
and your
they'll
insecurities
build,
and just all those things, you know, we really let our thoughts really like feed into those different areas. So if we're not mentally or, you know, emotionally and spiritually strong, we're going to really struggle and suffer in that. And that will affect our relationship with our spouse. And so, yeah, that would be my encouragement is like, you know, make sure you're taking time for yourself, making sure you're taking time to be in community with other people, making sure you're taking time to actually like read the word, spend time in prayer, pray for your spouse, you know, pray
That's
for their
huge. That's
protection,
huge.
pray for, you know, you to have peace, pray for, you know, just those different things. So that I feel like whenever you're kind of bringing all those, you know, different areas together, you are able to face the challenges that are presented, I think, with just a different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
I love that.
You got anything?
I don't know if I can say it any better than that. I mean, just communicate and don't do it alone. Like that seems to be the consensus from all of us. Like communicate expectations, open up the door to that conversation, and rely on the people around you to get through it.
Yeah. And there's going to be uncomfortable times in your marriage. It's inevitable because you're going to look at your spouse and go, why didn't you do that? How come you act like that? Your spouse ain't perfect. That's why. Your spouse is not a perfect person. And on top of that, you're not a perfect person either. Like I said earlier, you probably caused most of that, and she's just actually reacting to what you're doing. And so with that, you have to, I think my biggest piece of advice would be, man, one, lower your expectations of your spouse because you see them, I see my wife as perfect. And then when she doesn't act like that, I'm like, well, what the hell?
Yeah. Sorry, I feel like it's also understanding that your spouse isn't what is going to fulfill you. Don't have that expectation that my spouse is going to make me happy. My spouse is going to make me, you know, all these different things. But you need to understand like your fulfillment needs to really, you know, that's something you have to find for yourself and not like, because when, you know, when they're gone and, you know, you don't have that person to fulfill you, you're going to feel empty. You're going to feel lonely. You're going to feel like, you're missing out. Or
So true. Yeah.
And I guess that's it, actually. That's just the same question.
Yeah.
I think we answered it.
Yeah. Tagging off of that, I think an important thing is specifically for firemen is not allowing work to become your life. That was advice that was given to me when I first started figuring out if I wanted to do this for a career. And I was a volunteer, and it was a point where I was trying to get as much of it as I could. And I was given that advice of like, hey, you can love this job as much as you want. It's the best job in the world, and you can give everything to it, but you cannot let it take over your entire life and be your entire life, because your life is your family. At the end of the day, it's a job. It's a lifestyle and it's a passion, but it's a job, right? And so it can't be everything.
So that exact verbiage I got from Steve Green, lieutenant down at 37s or whatever he's doing now, probably teaching at TCC last I saw. But Steve Green said, hey, dude, do not let this job consume you.
Yep.
Do not let this job take over your life, because it will. I mean, it's hard for it not to, because like I said, it's the greatest job in the world.
Yeah.
Like by far, I wish you guys could like understand it. Like it is so much better than you think. But
even
also,
when it sucks, it's
when
awesome.
it sucks, it's pretty freaking cool. But with that being said, like, dude, Do not let this job take over your life. It is okay and it is great to be into the job, but do not let this job take over your life. One day you're going to retire. One day your kids are going to be in high school, college. They're going to have softball games. The job will be there.
Yeah.
Those moments you'll never get back.
Yeah.
What else we got?
Well, I know Laura has to get out of here, so we can wrap it up. Is there anything we need to, any housekeeping, or we got the stores still up?
I forgot about
that. The store will close on May 1st, so if you're interested in getting some Fill the Box merch, some hats or shirts or whatever, that's up.
So those hats and shirts are going to be a limited run. The designs, so this is the first run of the store. There's probably going to be another, but this design will be the last design out like that. The next one will be, mass broadcast consumer shit. I think this first run is going to be really cool because it's going to be for the original guys. Outside of that, no real housekeeping. Thanks you guys for tuning in. The feedback's been great. Keep it coming. We got a foundation stuff coming soon. We're gonna have a meeting. We have people going to classes. We got a team growing. Thank you for all the followers and listeners. That's been growing too. We really appreciate that, you guys. Shouts out to Blake Gardner, Ryan Chappell, Garrett, Andy Fushi, all the boys I went through DO with. That was real cool. We all passed, which is cool. It was a great group of dudes. Shouts out to Kramer Harbold. Man, solid dude. So going through SISM peer classes, that dude, he helped me realize like this whole thing is a practice, right? So SISM and peer and just talking to people, you have to practice it. So that was cool. Outside of that, I got nothing else on housekeeping. You got anything?
No, just appreciate you guys tuning in and listening, and please continue to comment and like and share it and get it out there. It really helps us when you guys share it with social media and share it with other people and send it to people. It's super helpful. So like we always say, we're just trying to get this out to as many people as we can. So hopefully the right person can hear what they need to hear and do that. So I really appreciate all you guys being here today. I know that we kind of forced some of you to be here, but I hope that you guys got something out of it and it was beneficial, and I hope that you will see the benefit of you being here through other people, because we are seeing the benefit of doing this through other people, so I'm sure that you guys will see that as well. So I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Cool.
Any last comments, last words? Nothing? All right.
All right. Well, we'll see you on the next one.
See you, boys.